We're going to do this one just a little bit different. Instead of doing our pot with our feathers coming out, I thought it would be nice if we actually did a little bit of a border around the outside, because in reality that's what you're going to be doing a lot on the quilts. So I have taken the liberty to do about a 3-inch border all the way around and just sewn my square in there. So you'll want to do that. And I've also marked off with the tape, the masking tape, to make sure that I know where my perimeters are so I don't go clear out to the edge. So I'll still have some room there without cutting off any of the feathers. Now to do this feather in the outside border, the feather that I'm going to do is called a fickle feather. And I call it that because I change sides from one side of the feather to the other, actually doing the feathers. And as you look at your border, you can determine, I want to be on the outside as I come around here. I'm going to come on the inside here, and then on the outside here, and the inside. So kind of look at your quilt and determine where you're going to come in and when you're going to go out. Your piecework is going to give you some clues there too, because you may have squares along the edge, and you can use those seams or those squares as your guidelines as you're making the curve for your feather. So the first thing you want to do is establish at least the first stem on that. So I'll start right here. Turn up my machine, and we'll come around. Now I'm going to go from the very edge to the very edge up to the tape mark. I'm not staying in the middle. I'm going from edge to edge, because the feather that I'm doing, the fickle feather, is contained within those edges. So one of the beauties of doing this fickle feather is that you can completely fill in the area, because you actually go from one side of the border to the other side of the border. Now while I'm in this place right here, I'm going to start making my feathers. And I can change whatever, you can do whatever feathers you like in here. Of course, you'd probably want to stick with one particular kind. Now you see I'm out of room here, so I'm going to follow that stem back up there to fill in the area on the inside of this curve. Fill in that area there with one of the curly feathers, which we did earlier. You can see as I do that feather, I follow that stem. Now I'll follow it back up a little ways and start that feather to fill in the inside here. Now notice that for a short period of time you have feathers on both sides, and for the rest of the time the feather is only on the inside curve. You can see how quickly you can fill up a sashing or do a border using this fickle feather. It's very pretty. Double that stem right there. Now I'm going to start, and instead of doing just the regular feather, I'm going to combine that feather with some ferns. Put in a feather here, put in a fern occasionally. And that's just so that we have a sampler that has examples of everything on it. Like I said, on a particular quilt, you would just keep doing whatever feather design you had chosen for that particular quilt. But we want to have a few examples of different things on the same quilt. Double that stem just a little bit to fill in this inside with my ferns and my feathers. Almost finished here. Double this. Now these inside feathers can be really tricky, and the trick is to follow the stem. Notice how far I follow the stem, and then that sets me up to come back and do the next feather, because you can get really turned around when you're on the inside of such a curve. And we'll follow this up here just to complete the feathers that are here. And you can see there's just a little bit of space there. I don't want to leave that space, so I'm just going to come in here with another curl. So whenever you end up with some extra space with freehand feathers, you can always go in and put another curl in. Okay, in the middle of this section, we have to think in terms of miniature, and this will be really good for you too, because we like to do things big, but sometimes we don't do things tiny enough. So now we're going to make a little miniature inside of this square. We have a lot of feathers to do, so don't do anything too big. We're going to start, we'll find the center visually, and then we'll just come down about 2 inches below the center. We're going to make a bow in the middle of this. We'll start here at the top and just make a little circle like that, and then just make our bow like this. Now we're going to come over to in this section like this, and while we're here we'll go ahead and fill it in so it looks kind of shadowy. Now you can do anything there that you want to for your fill in. You want to do a stipple in there, or you could even come back later on, you see, and put a different color of thread in there. Whatever you wanted to do for that. I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to make, go around this bow a couple of times like that. Just kind of make some, this looks like little wrinkles in your bow, so we're making it a little bit more realistic. And of course, because this is feather video, we have to feather this bow. So we're going to come down like this and we're going to just drip these feathers off of the bow and get tiny as we get into the middle like that. Kind of have them long and then come back this direction. There we go. Before I get down to that middle, I'll cut my thread, get that out of the way. Now I'm going to find my way back down here, and I'm going to come out with some nice curvy lines. Emphasize the heels again, just like we did on the ribbon before. So we have some pretty ribbons coming out of that bow. Okay, while we're at this point, I want to also mention that when you're coming back into a point, you have a lot of areas that you're going to be coming out of, and they all need to come back to the same point. They don't have to come right back to the point. They can just come part way, and it looks fine. So that's what we'll be doing on this, so that everything doesn't come right back to that same point, because then you get a buildup of thread that you don't want. First thing we're going to do is come out here with a stem and make our feather. Okay, we're just going to make pretty basic feather here. We might put a little curl in it just because we can. Don't make it too tiny, and then we'll come back, double our stem, and make our feather. Now we're going to go back. We're going to do a couple of things here. We're going to do polka dots, and remember on the polka dots that they're flat side. One side's flat and then round, otherwise it looks like an E. So as we come back in, we're following the edge of the feather, and we're putting polka dots inside those feathers, making sure that we do that flat side. So it's flat, round, flat, flat, round, flat. Now on that side, we did polka dots just along the edges of the feathers. On this one, we're going to do them just side by side, nice and round. So we're lining the entire feather with polka dots, using the edge of the feather as our anchor. And it would be so easy at that point, if you want to come in and put a polka dot in the middle as well, so you completely fill the feather with polka dots. This is really cute to put on a child's quilt, little polka dot feathers. Just makes it fun and very unusual. And what happens with those dots, of course, they're going to really stand out when the quilt is washed.